As we continue on into this big board for the 2019 NBA Draft, the next position we will be focusing on is the power forward position, which is also loaded with talent like the small forward position is. This position probably has the most high-end talent, but top to bottom, it's very solid, and there are very few ways you can go wrong. Before we dive into the top 10 though, make sure to subscribe to the channel because there's plenty more NBA Draft content coming soon. Now with that being said, let's begin. Starting at number 10 on this list, we have Naz Reid out of LSU. Reid is an interesting prospect because he has some really strong positives and some really strong negatives, making him both a low floor prospect and a high ceiling prospect. He's 6'10" with a 7'3" wingspan and can play both power forward and center at the next level. Plus, in the modern NBA, it's almost becoming a necessity for big men to at least be able to somewhat shoot from the perimeter and stretch the floor, and Reid showed a willingness to do so all season long at LSU by taking a high volume of shots from there. He may not have been very consistent or reliable from the outside, but the fact that he understood that he needs to do that is a plus. The negatives with him, though, is that he struggles with conditioning, isn't necessarily a rim protector on defense, and he struggles with efficiency. There's a ton of promise with him, but also a lot of risk, but even then, he will be worth at least a second-round pick. Up next at number 9 on this list is Jalen McDaniels out of San Diego State. McDaniels is an incredibly quick, mobile, and athletic player who loves to get out and run in transition and finish off lob passes at the rim. He has a lot of the makings of a modern-day power forward, but he absolutely needs to bulk up, having only weighed in at 192 pounds at the NBA Combine, which is incredibly slight for someone who's 6'10". The lack of strength will definitely be an issue on the defensive end of the floor, with almost every player he will be tasked with guarding being able to outmuscle him. Luckily, on the offensive end, he has an advantage in speed, and with surprisingly good handles for a forward, he can also create some mismatches in that regard. Outside of his on-the-court game, though, he is currently having some legal trouble, which may hurt his draft stock, and while I won't get into the details of it here, I will say that it's at least slightly concerning. He's probably only worth taking a risk on with a second-round pick because of these issues, but if all of that gets cleared up, he could be a good value pick. Next up at number 8 on this list is Chuma Okeke out of Auburn. Okeke's Auburn team made a terrific run in March this year, but unfortunately his run was cut a bit short when he tore his ACL in the Sweet 16. ACL injuries are no joke, and it will probably take him a long time to both fully heal and get back to his normal self, which sucks because it's inevitably going to limit his draft stock after previously being first-round talent. Before the injury, he was a terrific athlete, solid shooter for a big man, knocking down 39% of his threes, and he had great instincts around the basket that saw him create a lot of open looks for himself. He's slightly undersized at 6'8", meaning he might be tasked with guarding wing players at times, which could create some issues since he struggled to keep wings in front of him in college. Overall though, if he can return to being the player he once was pre-injury, he'll have no trouble working his way into an NBA rotation, but the risk with drafting an injured player is that they never make it back 100%. Next up at number 7 on this list is Darius Bazley, who actually skipped out on playing any organized basketball all year and instead spent his time training for the draft on his own. Because he chose to go this route, he fell completely off the radar of many of the draft analysts and experts. However, he did choose to take full participation in the draft combine, and while there, he impressed immensely. What makes Bazley special on the court is that he can definitely create some matchup nightmares when guarded by opposing power forwards, because he's quick and nimble with outstanding ball handling ability for a player at his position, and when he grabs a rebound, he's able to immediately push the pace and start the break. His jump shot also showed promising improvement at the combine, and his overall fluid game should fit right into today's game. Now, regarding his negatives, he too is fairly skinny and may struggle early on the defensive end of the floor, and adding strength is his biggest need at the moment. If he pans out after seeing Mitchell Robinson pan out last year, who also chose a similar path as Bazley did to get to the draft, we may see more players opting out of college basketball and going this route in the future. Next up at number 6 on this list is Eric Paschall out of Villanova. Paschall brings some championship pedigree in his resume, having played a big role on the 2018 Villanova team that won the whole thing that year. He can take advantage of slower bigs with his shot creation ability off the dribble, range out to the three-point line, and strength to finish with power in the paint. He's also a 4-year player, so he's much more ready to contribute right away in the league than many players in the draft. He's also capable of playing on the wing both offensively and defensively, and that kind of versatility is greatly appreciated in today's game. His efficiency did slightly dip in his senior season because he was tasked with being the go-to guy on the team, as opposed to previously being a role player. In the NBA, he'll be able to go back to being a role player that doesn't need to play out of his comfort zone, which should help maximize his talents. Expect him to be drafted at the end of the first round or early second round. Next up at number 5 on this list is Grant Williams out of Tennessee. Williams brings a blend of old school power forward and new school power forward in his game. He's an excellent post scorer with crafty moves and bully ball strength down there, but he also possesses a capable outside jumper to stretch the floor. Plus, his best asset is probably his playmaking ability, as he's an incredibly smart player that always seems to make the right play and is a terrific passer for someone at his position. Defensively, he works hard and is typically in the right position, but he's not necessarily a difference maker on that end. He holds his own, but isn't someone that will make big plays on that end of the floor. In the NBA, he can play many different roles within the scheme of an offense, whether he's needed to create for others out of the high post or attack himself, and his name will probably be called somewhere in the middle of the first round. Next up at number 4 on this list is PJ Washington out of Kentucky. Washington finished up a great season at Kentucky and helped himself immensely as an NBA prospect. His biggest value will be on the defensive end of the floor, as his combination of agility, size, and strength should make him capable of defending small forwards, power forwards, and centers at the next level, at least at an above-average level. Offensively, Washington is an absolute workhorse around the rim and uses his terrific touch and nice jump hook to get his shots to fall at a very efficient clip. He also shot 45% from 3 last year, although his volume wasn't necessarily very high, so I wouldn't label him as a marksman or anything, just that he's capable. He gives you a little bit of everything from the power forward spot, and his versatility make him a very strong first round pick that might sneak into the lottery. Up next at number 3 on this list is Rui Hachimura out of Gonzaga. Hachimura showed out big time this year, putting up monster numbers and leading his Gonzaga team on a very deep run in March Madness. He dominates down low in the post with his bully ball style and skillful post moves. However, he's not just a post player, as his mid-range jumper is also one of his best assets. He still needs to work on improving his three-point shot, because while he shot a good percentage from 3 this year, he barely even attempted 1 per game, so he's probably not quite comfortable out there yet. He'll be a great pick and roll or pick and pop player in the league as well. The concerns with him are that, with his playstyle, he may struggle because he's only 6'8", yet likes to play around the rim, and against stronger, bigger defenders, that might not work. Overall though, he's a very well-balanced prospect with lottery talent. Up next at number 2 on this list is Brandon Clarke, who, funny enough, is also out of Gonzaga. Clarke is admittedly one of my favorite players on this list because he's someone that would be useful on any team in any scheme. He's a freak athlete that runs in transition, finishes high above the rim, is great as a pick and roll player, and has a terrific motor that sees him never stop attacking. Additionally, he crashes the glass hard on both ends and will look to get some putbacks if the defense is sleeping. Defensively, Clarke is also one of the very best shot blockers in the whole draft, having averaged over 3 blocks per game last year. He may not be a go-to scorer like some of the other players on this list, but he excels at so many of the little things that go into being a good basketball player and can make any NBA team better because of it. Now, finally, at number 1 on this list, we have the one and only Zion Williamson out of Duke. He really needs no introduction because at this point, he's a national sensation and a household name. He's going to be the number 1 pick in the draft, and the Pelicans won't even think twice about it. He's one of the best athletes we've possibly ever seen enter the NBA. He's a tremendous playmaker for a forward, and is practically unstoppable when he goes into attack mode. He's a generational talent, and will probably be an all-star for years to come. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to subscribe to the channel as there is still plenty more NBA draft content on the way. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.